And welcome to an episode of Deal Talk. I'm Deal. Let's talk. My guest of the evening is a returning guest. It's always an honor and pleasure having you here on the show, ladies and gentlemen. Warm welcome. Give a warm welcome to Antonio Aloia. Welcome to the show, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you again for having me. It's really, it's really great to be back and be with you again.
Man, it's always an honor having you and your family on the show, man. I'm looking forward because you got a new book out. It's totally different from your martial arts history journey you have done. So I'll give you the floor. Let the people know what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the new book is When We Rocked, the story of the Philadelphia rock music scene, 1990, sorry, 1990, 1978 to 92. I'm not sure if you guys can really see it
It's a
with,
little blurry.
but it has When We Rocked and it has the Liberty Bell on it because it's based in Philly. So that's like the really big punch of it. And really, like the title says, it covers the Philadelphia rock music scene from 78 to 92. And we weren't really sure in the beginning, like how much we should really be covering, but we cover a lot of the beginning part, like when Pennsylvania was first founded as a colony. So there was like the whole Quaker aspect and how it transformed from Quaker into a less Quaker influenced government and society, which allowed for music to flourish. Went to the importance of radio and American Bandstand, all the way up through the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and how by 92, 93, 94, 95 the music industry changed not only in Philadelphia but nationally, and it kind of just changed how everyone looked at how to make music and how to actually succeed in the music industry. And we cover a little bit there too. But really, it's from the perspective of from the musician, because those are the guys that were in the trenches, not only in the beginning, but also by the end too. Because and actually even now, because without the musicians, you don't really have a scene. You just have a lot of venues that are just empty. So there's no, if there's no musicians, then you don't have a scene. So that's kind of in a nutshell what the book is really about.
Dude, that's awesome. What uh what transpired you to what inspired you to go on this journey? Because I know you're a major rock head, right? Besides that, what piqued your curiosity?
Well, to be honest, this wasn't really my um I wouldn't say it wasn't my idea. Um it wasn't my brainchild. It was the brainchild of a local um Philadelphia musician called Mick Michaels, and he's been around since doing things since the 80s on and off, and then he's been back at it again since like 2010 or something like that. But he he invited me onto the project after some other people he had on really weren't panning out. And again, since it's his brainchild, he just keeps forwarding on with it. So Mick kind of reached out to me. I used to really for his band in the old days, and used to open up some shows with him. Um, but we always stay in contact. So he knew of my past experience with the books and everything. So he's like, "Hey, I'm telling you, why don't you come on and see how we can how we can do this? Because I think there's something really here." And after going through the draft, I'm like, "Yes, there is something here. Let's go forward with it." So his idea was to, like I said before, tell the story of the scene from again 78 to 92, 93, from the eyes of the musicians, from those who actually lived it. So then we have a uh, an array of characters from again those from 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 that time period, not just those who technically made it from the Philly rock scene, like um, like Cinderella, Britny Fox, Tangier, and Heaven's Edge, and a few others. We went up looking at those that were underneath the national acts, more or less like the regional acts. So like the Dead End Kids and the thrash metal scene that came out of, especially during the late 80s. So we I say we because I wound up tagging on. But Mick really wanted to tell that story because not only was he a part of it, playing it, but he was also one there witnessing it, and there was something about it that that everyone seemed to just continue to talk about. I mean, even when I played my fair share of shows in Philly, there were a number of older musicians and bands that were like, yeah, the Philly scene back in the 80s, back in the 70s was like, this thing, this golden age. And I'm like, this is the best excuse for me to actually go and dive into this. You know what I mean? And there was a bit of a golden age back then where there was a scene that just kind of allowed itself to do what it wanted to do in a way. Um, yeah, so I tried my best to complement his vision as best as I can.
Wow. So like what did you interview people? Did you talk to people? Like that had a bit that had to have been an experience for itself, just talking about what was it like back in the day in Philly,
So
regarding
yeah,
the rock scene.
yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of interviewing, and unfortunately for me, I didn't do a lot of the interviewing per se. I did a lot of interview mining. I'll get to that in a second. But Mick, because he again lived it and sort of had a bigger connection, I felt myself that he was better qualified for that. And maybe it might have been easier in my head for him to talk to those guys from way back when because they had that sort of connection instead of some young guy who wasn't there and I was like, yeah, what is this guy talking about, sort of thing. But there was a lot of stuff from those interviews that were eye-opening. That like, hey, I never heard this thing before. Let's definitely add this in, or um, or actually the fact that un unprovoked, there was a probably at least five different artists that we talked to that brought up the impact of the Dead End Kids, which was kind of like a proto glam metal band or glam rock band from the excuse me like early 80s, mid 80s. Um, and everyone from Philly was talking about how much like they wanted to be like the Dead End Kids, and both even though Mick interviewed, we both made up some questions, and we never purposely went and said, it's like, yeah, how did the Dead End Kids make an impact? They just brought up themselves, which I think was amazing, because that just demonstrates how well, one, how impactful it was, but also like how no matter where you were, I mean, I think like a thrasher, like two thrash metal guys said, yeah, the Dead End Kids were freaking awesome, and like you're playing the exact opposite music that the Dead End Kids are, so it was like, hey, that's awesome. But no, the interviews wound up becoming the main so like the main source of a lot of these a lot of the stories because again we want to reflect those guys that were in the trenches at that time, and again it was their experiences that really made the Philly scene what it was. um yeah.
That's awesome, man. I don't. That's awesome. So, did you get assistance writing this book, or was it all you, or how
Oh,
was
it
it?
was
Come.
it was it was it was it was the both of us. He had written some things out, um multiple drafts. I mean, we basically went through multiple drafts. So he would write something and then he would send it over. I would write something and he would ask, "Hey, can you research this thing while I'm trying to do interviews over here?" And it wound up being like a kind of like a juggling act of, all right, well, I'm done with this thing. I got all my notes. Now I'm going to write. And like sometimes it was like, hey, let's just keep rolling. Um, but there was a lot of sending files back and forth um, to ensure that the drafts were being written in the I don't say the right way, but like the best way that we could to convey this information. One of the things that we had a conversation early on was how the tone of the book, because the
Yeah.
two books I've written before, they're very scholarly, and to some people it could be very dry and very boring, which again, I mean, if being honest, I am a historian. Sometimes history is boring,
Yeah. Yeah.
is dry. But considering that this was like music history, and there's a certain allure and um something else with music, it couldn't be dry and it couldn't be overly technical. So we both decided to have a more relaxed tone within the book, so that you could pick it up, and then it's kind of like you're in the interviews themselves, where it's like everyday people talking, and you're like, oh, I get it.
Got
It's
it.
it's not like hidden behind a bunch of jargon or a bunch of weird Japanese words that no one knows except for, like, 3% of the population. So
Yeah.
we wanted to make sure that it was accessible that way, but also reflected that sort of blue collar attitude of the musicians, and that DIY sort of aspect, where it's like, well, this is it, and this is how we're going to go do it, and most people can understand the cut and dry of that sort of simple language. So we wanted to make sure that we definitely reflected that as much as we could.
Nice, nice, nice. That's awesome. Like, what are some things that like you learned in your research and reading and looking over these interviews? What was there anything shocking? Like,
There was there was um well there was a few things. One, there was a lot of bands, and I'm not saying that bands don't do this now, because they definitely do. Times have definitely changed, though. But there was a certain DIY, do it yourself aspect in the music rock scene, in the late 70s and 80s, that like bands, if you were young enough and you couldn't play at the bars or the venues that had bars, you found different ways to play, whether it was at a house party or at a park before the cops came and shut you down, or um, a roller rink, or a zoo, whatever it was, they found a way to play. Um, and these were like, your typical hair metal, thrash metal bands of that time, and you don't really, at least now, I don't think you do really connect DIY with like hair metal. You always think of like, oh, it's always like arena rock or something like that, where they're always selling out arenas, but they would just play anywhere, which was amazing to me, because everyone that I came in contact with, and some of the early interviews that we had, everyone was talking about the big venues of like the Galaxy, or the Empire, or the Tower, or the Trocadero, or the TLA, all these like venue based venues, literally. And then it was sprinkled in with all these references to, well, there was a house party that like everyone went to like every Friday night, and there were like six bands there, and that was like its own venue for again, the decade. Or they went with a roller rink, and they had three bands there for one Friday night or something like that. So like it really demonstrated that there was a lot of fluidity with how they made that scene work. It wasn't just, hey, we're sticking to Philly, and it can only be playing these bars or places with stages. It's like you could play it anywhere, which was really something that I didn't realize until I started reading these interviews. And I think that was one of those main takeaways, where they just did it wherever they could.
yeah, spread the music.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Is was it like? Was there anything that called your attention, the aspect of doing music or just the representation from that time frame and today's present time?
Um, Something I guess similar that echoes through, from there to now. We have a chapter, a specific chapter that talks about the band experience. It's entitled "I'm in the band" or I'm with the band. I'm sorry. Um, and it's kind of like a collection of. I mean, it is a collection of quotes, but it is a chapter that really dives into the experience of being in a band, like no matter what. Like, I mean, we have excuse me, we have national artists weighing in on, like, like with KK Downing from well, now KK's Priest, but they were previously with Judas Priest, or um Chrissy Nuff from Enuff Snuff, or Jack Russell from Great White. And then you take those quotes and you mirror them with, or you compare them with the guys from Philly, and they were saying the almost the same exact thing, but one was, they were just getting paid more and touring more, and the other guys, they were just playing around Philly and around the suburbs, and they were both experiencing the same thing. And
It's on
I,
bigger and smaller stage.
yeah, bigger, smaller states, they're still experiencing the same things, whether it's loss of members, due to the death, or just people quitting, people being fired, how we split the money, especially once bands start to make the money.
Partying, drugs, alcohol,
Yeah, yeah,
the whole
everything.
shebang.
Yes, the whole shebang. There was a lot of stuff on promotion and flyers. Like, someone actually used like their day jobs printers to Xerox. They literally said to Xerox copies of their band's flyers to put them out on cars during like Spectrum nights, or what was the Wachovia Spectrum, which then became the Wells Fargo Center, which now I think from earlier this month is now the Xfinity
The
Arena
evolution,
or
man.
something like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
Evolution.
but but the thing is that they still went out and advertised, even though like 95% of their flyers would just been thrown away. The same thing happens with the national acts. It's just you get to see those flyers way too often.
Yeah.
Now it's on your phone. But really, that, I can't just say enough, but like, it really echoed one national and local or regional, excuse me, they were experiencing the same thing. And to bring it to today, they are still experiencing the same thing because, at the heart of it, marketing and creating music is still the same. It still comes from
Yeah.
one person, or it still comes from one agency, and you still gotta get the music in front of people, whether it's through provocative flyers, or making a Spotify playlist and saying all that out. So
Yeah.
it's the same but different at the same time.
How was it for you? That's what I want to know. Like, you must have been geeking out because you're a fan of the rock, the thrash music. And like,
Hmm.
you must have been like, whoa,
Oh,
excited, overwhelmed, like
yeah, I was, and in a way, I still am, but um, it really brought that era, I felt, and the era to life, from the perspective of those artists, because it was it was from the horse's mouth, from those people who definitely
yeah.
experienced it at different levels. So it was actually really great to see how people viewed not music back then, but also the scene back then, and how they uh
Perceived
who yeah,
everything.
yeah, how they perceived everything, but but also who they looked up to. Because I remember, again, to bring up the Dead End Kids, the Dead End Kids were I'm still not totally clear because there's still some like myth and lore that's kind of like
Hmm.
within these music scenes. But like the Dead End Kids were either a Jersey band that played Philly a lot or a Philly band that played Jersey a lot. Two different stories, but the fact of the matter is that the Dead End Kids existed. But everyone, sorry, not everyone, but there was a good number of Philly people, Philly musicians that we interviewed that talked about that how much they wanted to be like how they wanted to be like the Dead End Kids. And the Dead End Kids, unfortunately, they never got to that national scene and blew up. They were a regional band that sort of tapered off, and again, to add to to that myth and mystique and mystery is that no one really knows exactly what really happened to them. I mean, you can even look up the Dead End Kids on the internet, and you get some British like punk band, the Dead End Kids, and it's like this isn't what I'm talking about. So it there. So my point is that even the local people, they even though that they listen to say the national acts or the international acts, depending on where the band was from, they 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 had a much greater connection to the local or regional acts. Again, like the Dead End Kids. There was also one called World War III, which was like the Northeast or Philly's own sort of Judas Priest, another band that
Yeah.
never really broke it or made it, so to speak. So all these bands had a following, and all the bands that wanted to be like them were then almost content with that local or regional fame, like kind of like a big fish in a little pond. But I don't think they really knew that it was a big fish in a
Yeah.
little pond sort of mentality. But
I think it
yeah,
could be like it's one of those things that like you had to be there, right?
oh yeah,
Because like, Philly has a rich history of, unsung heroes everywhere when it
Mhm.
comes to music, sports, wrestling. ECW at one time was a iconic thing in Philadelphia.
Mhm.
And it's one of those things like uh I guess technology wasn't advanced at that time. It's like you couldn't say that. You could, not everybody, you had to be in the moment. It's one of those things like you live through memory, not through video or camcorder, one of those things, right?
It definitely is, and I think that's where a lot of that magic, I don't want to say nostalgia. There is a good dose of nostalgia, but I think that there is a lot of that magic that not only those people who played through those scenes, but also those who, the fans who went and experienced everything, that it was something different for them than I guess the modern music scene. There was just something in it for them that just was like, yes, there's a reason why I want to go back to this time. And hey, maybe it's because that, their back doesn't hurt, but but
Yeah,
still.
yeah. It's one of those things. It was good while it lasted.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, and I think with this book, what me and Mick did is that we tried to bring that magic or at least those memories, enough of those memories that we could absolutely verify back to those who were there and just kind of give them their own their own piece of history totally and utterly on the record, as opposed to say LA, where if we're talking about the same time period, everyone talks about the LA scene, especially with that glam metal stuff. So to that end, it's actually really great that we can almost memorialize those memories and those experiences here in Philly for not only for the artists but for the fans as well.
Awesome, awesome, man. Now, Nick, like, man, you should have just brought Nick on the show too to talk about this, man. We got to do a next one, and bring him on and talk more. I think there's so much rich history, right?
Oh yeah,
And we're
absolutely, absolutely.
yeah,
I can definitely see what his schedule holds, but those musician types, they're always. doing
Oh
something.
yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
But no,
Oh, that's
yeah,
amazing, man.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And really, it's been a fun experience. It's been fun. It's been fun in a way that I can do my research. I always get gay with research, but it's also great that I could learn more about the Philadelphia music scene when I've heard so much about it. And it's actually it was a different experience working with a second person on this book, and this wound up being like the fastest book that I've actually um started, written, and published in a matter of, I think, a year and a half. About, I
Wow.
mean, Mick was uh, he was very efficient with his time. So if there was a lull in one place, he's like, "Hey, why don't we try our thoughts over here," and then circle back around. So it was a lot. It was a much faster process than I'm used to because I sit and write and then I ponder some things. And I guess having the second brain doing the other pondering was really helpful in this experience. But this this book, at least for me, was uh was fun and definitely productive on all fronts.
When it was done, like, did you have anybody in particular who read it? Like, what other feedback have you gotten?
Well, we we had we had Johnny D read it and do the forward. Johnny D was the drummer to Britny Fox, a very AC/DC Cinderella type of band that came that made it big from Philly. They were like the second major glam rock hair metal band that got signed in Philly. And now he plays with Doro over in Europe. But he read it, and there was just a few things that we had to clarify because again, a lot of these interviews are done, 40 plus years ago. Sorry, they were interviews about events and times that were like 40 plus years ago. So memories are a little wonky at some points. So how he remembered it compared to how other people remember it, we had to try and find that medium where, okay, well, if you say this and he says this, we have to find something that corroborates both. And it could just be the spelling of a name, and names are always hard to spell, no matter
Yeah.
no matter. But there's there's like three different uh versions of a name that we found, and we had to be like, okay, well, this is the one that we're going to choose. But we've had in terms of reviews and feedback, it's been overwhelmingly positive. A lot of people have mentioned, like I said before, like reliving this magic that they knew from back then, and even those who were in Philly but were like majorly outside of Philly, like say from Scranton or Harrisburg, Pittsburgh, or Lancaster, Jersey, they're like, oh yeah, I remember that I was over here, or my friend was over there, sort of thing. So there was a lot of those kinds of reviews and feedbacks from fans and others, which is which has been great, and which has kind of been one of the reasons that we made made this book. So I mean, it's been very positive, and it's been very great to actually hear those feedbacks.
Why the time frame from 1978 to 1992? Was it because it was so massive at that time in that
Um,
time frame?
yeah. It was a time that Mick felt that it was super important to cover. Um, or- Originally he wanted to do just like the Philly metal scene, which if you think about metal didn't come into its own until like 84, 85, which that's only like 6 years to really cover.
Yeah.
But um, when I got on board and we discussed a little bit more, we found that we needed to contextualize, um, essentially this golden age with what came before it, and what immediately came before this 78 to 92 time frame was the Philadelphia sound, or the Philadelphia soul sort of scene and popularity of the 70s. That's with the Tramps, with Disco Inferno. Um, so there was a lot of that we had to create some groundwork, but it was from that time period, from the 70s on, that created the rock scene as it was then. There was the cover scene, and there was the original scene. So it was it was kind of at that crossroads of like, hey, we just came off of like a whole original thing. Now we just want covers, and then by 84 on to 92, it was it was originals. Actually, there was even a few thrash people that said that there were only clubs only wanted like heavy original acts because that's what was drawing. Um, and then we stopped at 92 because that's when the music industry changed, especially for rock music and glam metal and just metal in general. We get into some of the particulars within the like the recording aspects with this where Pro Tools comes in. This is where auto tune starts to come in, and Cher
Yeah.
does her big comeback album or song. Um, but 92 was really where the music industry flipped, and it just demonstrated that flip demonstrated that everything that came before that, what made the Philly rock scene, for the Philly rock scene, completely and utterly changed. And it wasn't really the same moving forward. I will say though, moving forward, because in the 90s we had the uptick in pop, hip hop, rap, alternative, etc., grunge, that there was a lot of gravitation towards those because that was the popular music. But especially in Philly with the hip hop and rap, since it was primarily an African American uh, community genres, they actually piggybacked off of the networking that the soul artists and soul radio stations had back in the 70s. They piggybacked off of those communities and networks to push their music into, further into the airwaves, not only in Philly, but further on, to help the spread of rap, hip hop, etc.
So one way in growing that music, it kind of affected the rock scene a bit,
Hmm.
if not
Well,
diminished it.
yeah, yeah. There's plenty of stuff, especially focused on the whole LA aspect, but uh, there was there was a switch literally that happened within the music industry that said, this rock stuff, they're getting all cookie cutter, they're all sounding the same, and why are we spending all this money on them? And then
Yeah.
it just is like, well, we're just gonna flip. And
Yeah.
then it just, once it flips at the top, everything changes at the at the at the bottom. And actually during the 90s, that's when the whole the smaller venue, the singer-songwriters, the solo duo acoustic acts start to come back a little bit, like from the 70s, 60s, because that's where the that's where the that's where the venues were going. It's like, okay, well, we can't spend all this money on this big pyrotechnic stuff. We
Yeah.
got,
Yeah.
we gotta go bare bare bones.
Yeah. And I think that's that's unfortunate, right? Because I mean, at one point rock was like a very young person game. Very
Mhm.
much like, I think that's why hip hop has started because it's a young person game,
Mhm.
and not knowing how to like grow or evolve in the music,
Mhm.
they quickly wanted something more younger because younger you get more money, right? Or whatever the case may
Yeah,
be. But
absolutely.
that kind of sucks though, right? That's my
Yeah,
point.
yeah, yeah.
uh
There were a lot of musicians, especially Philly, well, nationally, but there was a lot of Philly-based musicians that were like, yeah, it kind of really sucked when everything flipped, and it forced me to, or forced them to try and survive. One guy went into grunge cover bands, another guy um,
yeah.
went on to do lessons and get a day job and everything else. There were even some that were like, yeah, I know music wasn't going to be my money-making machine, um, so I kept something in the background or whatever. So there was a lot of different perspectives to how the music industry definitely changed. But there there was enough people that were like, yes, we're in it, and then the carpet was pulled under them, and they're like, well, crap, I gotta try and find something else. And then there was others that were like, yeah, I kind of sort of saw it, but I was already, one foot out because of family things or whatever. So everyone had a different perspective on it, but the overall feeling was it sucked.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, it was, when you look at these documentaries, especially like on VH1, right?
Mhm.
Like drugs, booze, women, alcohol, like when you have a mix of that and you're just partying, you're
Mhm.
not really you're not really doing two and two together, like money wise, finances wise,
Mhm.
as long as you're able to, rock on, party, get
Mhm.
laid, like, at one point or another, it starts affecting the performance or even the business, and people take advantage of that, you know.
Yeah, no,
I was
absolutely.
yeah, I was looking. I can't remember her name. I had her. She's like a metalhead journalist, and I think she'll
Mhm.
be great to you join her on her platform and talk about this because that's what she focuses on. But unfortunately, I don't remember her name. I can't find it for some reason. But I guess after the show, I'll look better and I'll send you their info. But man, I think that's you know, I think that's super dope. Especially in the Philly scene, man, which is I keep telling people like Philly has so much potential,
Mhm.
has so much potential regarding the music, acting, comedy. A lot of great people come from Philly, man.
Yeah, yeah, and for for some reason it gets overlooked. I mean, I know when um the Hooters got signed in 85, and then Cinderella got signed just a little bit later. It was all eyes on Philly, and then you know by that only lasted for about like 4, 5, 6 years, and then again 92 happened. The switch change, or yeah, everything got flipped, and Philly became not, I guess, not a place to really look look at. It went to New York, it went to Jersey, went to LA, went to elsewhere. And it is unfortunate because and we kind of wrap it up in the at the end of the book, but but there still is you know that Philly scene. It's just different, and it's expressing itself way differently than it did back in the 70s and the 80s. There's still a do-it-yourself aspect and
Mhm.
attitude, you know, playing in basements. Um, actually, one of the more modern venues is literally the basement of a Lutheran church that just rents out space. Um, but there, the adage is, there are still places to play in Philly. It's just it's become more and more do it yourself than it than it ever has been.
I think it just first of all, I hate when people like have like an AC/DC on and don't know who the damn band is, you know? I'm glad I'm given this opportunity to say this. Uh, um, or doesn't know where Aerosmith or Led Zeppelin, I'm not, a rock connoisseur, right? But at least I know what's what, right?
Mhm.
Because in the 90s, MTV was a big thing. That's where they promoted the music and all these different type
Mhm.
of genres. Now it just sucks. But after I said what I said, but I think it's just like, when it comes to music like that, it's real,
Mhm.
and because it's dark or whatever, it's scary and it's difficult to market, right? Because if you can market it easier, it's something that's going to constantly keep flowing.
Mhm.
When you big music industry are always going to invest something like that because it's quote unquote safe. But um, I think it's important to keep music like that alive, man. Especially like the bands, especially
Mhm.
like I always said somebody playing the guitar, the drums, you can feel the essence of their spirit flowing through these instruments, right? Rather than, everything is like has this damn, the computer or software to make
Mhm.
beats,
Yeah.
you're not selling I always say you're not selling like music, you're selling an experience,
Mhm.
and what good does it to sell if you can't express that,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I think there was and you bring up the experience part. There was even part in the book where there was there was some talk of like why there were some bands that never made it further.
Mm-hmm.
Um and the one thing that the few people talked about was that experience, more specifically this connection between the artist and the audience. And they mentioned a lot of like they used Cinderella as an example, but it was but Cinderella represented like that hair metal, that rock genre, and he was comparing them to say the thrash metal scenes, the thrash metal bands. There was a better connection between bands that were like Cinderella with the audience than the thrash bands. And I think it was that relatability. Um,
Mm.
whether it is songs of trying to get laid or just driving out Night Island Town, whatever it is beside, and then
Yeah,
you have thrash, which is anger, um, some more of the maybe
yeah.
metaphysical stuff
But
or
you know what's crazy?
psychological.
You know what's crazy? I was talking. I think it was yesterday to my wife, and I think it's just a different way to express things. But like when you listen to these lyrics, Ozzy Osbourne, going through changes.
Hmm.
Like you know how so many versions they have made it, like take it off the rock version and remade it and make so much sense. Poison, what's it, poison? Every rose has a thorn, right?
Hmm.
If you listen to their words, it's not bad as it's like a story, right? That they're
Yeah.
going through something, and I think we all have different ways of expressing it. And
Hmm.
sometimes you gotta get in a mash pit and you just fuck somebody up real quick, you know. And sometimes you need a slow jam of a soft guitar or whatever the case may be to get you going. But it's cool, you know.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I guess just on that, more people are I guess I feel more people are I don't know apt to go for the soft guitar things because it
Yeah.
is maybe safer and they don't want to feel. the other stuff where you want to go into a mosh pit. But now that's just getting into psychology,
Dude,
which I'm not
I met
interested.
yeah, I met somebody I used to work security in the past here in New Jersey. And I met this guy who's like I think I met him like a good 2 months and then he left and then like I want to say like 6 months later he came back and like he came back like his arms all fucked up and he was in a boss pit just fucking punching people. And he's like, yeah, but I had to go. He's like, I had to go to therapy. I still enjoy it, but I had to stop that shit. That shit was crazy.
Yeah.
That's exactly his words. But it was I don't know, man. It's an experience, like what are we doing? We're not experiencing, right? If
Mhm.
we're not like trying different things, and I think it's dope. I think it's cool. I think it's different.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I totally agree. I mean, if you're there at the concert and you're not, I mean, and you're spending the entire time recording, you're not really experiencing. I mean, I was
Yeah.
just at one recently with my wife. We went to go see Michael Shankner, who was part of UFO during the 80s. And there was just like a half a sea of phones out recording the entire concert, and it's like, what are you doing? Wait, I mean, these were the people that experienced like UFO, Michael Shackner,
Hmm.
Judas Priest, Kiss, all these other people during the 70s, the 80s, when they didn't have phones and recording devices. And you're telling me now that you're taking up your phone and you're recording the live experience that you previously experienced without a phone. It's kind of weird, and I even made a conscious effort not to do a lot of picture taking during concerts because I just want to stand and take it in and just experience it. And then when I get to the car, it's like, "Oh, that was a nice freaking show." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or or not. So then I can actually experience it from here, not through the lens of my phone. Um, but yeah, it's really weird since we're talking about experiences that those people who grew up with literally just experiencing now
Hmm.
have to put a lens and a screen in front of it, and it's kind of unfortunate. You're taking that
Yeah.
experience out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's tough, man, because in one sense I get it because like that's history. You're recording history because there's some people that should watch it, especially new generations that not able to experience what you experienced at that moment in time, right? But
Mhm.
also it's like, man, you can't judge them for not wanting to do that because what's the whole point? Like you go there and you want to experience hundreds of people feeling that same vibration, that same excitement, that same content that damn, we're really here making history. It's like, I mentioned Ozzy Osbourne because he just passed away not too long ago.
Mhm.
But like that last concert that he
Yeah.
did and like 2 days later he passed away, like how many people just went there to try to relive their first concert or the first time they heard him sing, right?
Hmm.
And not record it, just be there in the moment. I think that's, it's like the first time I heard corn. I was like, what
Hmm.
the fuck is this? Like or
Yeah.
like you know, like or
Yeah.
like when
Yeah.
Limp Bizkit said rolling, rolling, and I'm like, what? Like it's I think it's important to be able to document these things, but it's like it's so much important even more to like live it, man. Like
Mhm.
just fucking live it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. If only there was a way that we can live it and then record it at the same time so that we don't have to be so focused on one or the other that we can you know con preserve it and pass it on
Yeah.
to previous or not previous, sorry, future generations. Because I mean, if you like I don't know, let's take Metallica. Um, all their studio albums, they're good. They have a certain feeling to it. But then when you see them live, or when you used to see them live, whatever you want to say, they played those songs faster, and there's like an urgency to it. There's like, oh my God, now
Hmm.
I can actually go into the thrash pit. But um like if you look at their discography, their first live album wasn't until I think right before, or was it like right after their Black album? The yeah, their Black album, which was 88 or 89 or something like that. So then it was like 91 that they actually came out with their first live album. And it's like, well, you just missed like 10 years of them doing, their older stuff before they got commercial. You just kind of missed that. And then
Yeah.
you just have to try and go and scour the internet for old videos and stuff with really bad audio.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's the best part, when you find the video that you're looking for, and you just start playing it. It's like, oh crap, the audio just is it's just bad. But then it's like, well, it's 1982. What do you expect?
Yeah, hey. But those is like, when they first started, it's like that sense of urgency, that sense of survival. It's like we gotta play like, tomorrow, But
Hmm.
once you get signed and you start doing tours after tours after tour, because majority of those bands, the way they got the millions is touring. Because,
Hmm.
sometimes, they get those shitty deals that they don't understand, right?
Yeah.
They don't have that anymore. And I think one thing, like I had these friends, and he used to talk with his dad and I used to hear him talk about, like, Black Sabbath or Metallica or AC/DC, and like, they always compare albums, and no, this one's better, and it's not the same. And like I never understood that, because like isn't there like supposed to evolve? Like what
Hmm.
they did before is not supposed to sound like what they did now, right? Like, but it's also,
Yeah.
I understood that, and we're like, for people, there's a sense of time where they were the most happiest, and
Mhm.
they'll recall this album, like example, like Black Album. It's like this has to be the best album because at that point in time, it was
Yeah.
good for them. So
Mhm.
I don't
Oh,
know.
no, no. It just I think a lot of that also just comes down to how the album resonates with you as a listener. Because there's some albums within the band's catalog that I won't touch, because I listened to it like two, three times, and like I don't like this album, but I like everything else that they did.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna pretend like it doesn't exist. I mean, like I actually tried to listen to um one of Judas Priest's albums without Rob Halford, which was the main vocalist that they had. Then they replaced him with Tim Ripper Owens, and who has a good voice in of himself. But the one album was new. I couldn't get past the first song, because it's like it's just it didn't feel like them, and it didn't feel like it was a whatever it is, it just wasn't resonating with me. So I'm like, I gotta put on something that resonates with me. And it, and my wife and I have a lot of these conversations too, with bands that we've seen live, and they only play like one or two songs from this album, that album, the other one, and like they sound completely different from what they did before. And it's like, yeah, but I don't like the majority of their new stuff. What I mean? And maybe because it is so different, and because of that difference, I like their earlier stuff resonates with me more than their new stuff. So I think a lot of that comes down to how does the album resonates. Like you said,
Mhm.
it reflects the time. But with me, like a lot of these bands that I'm listening to, I'd never been there when they were at their heyday. So, or excuse me, what would be considered the golden age. So I'm just listening back to old albums from like, 86 or whatever. And like, hey, this is still good, even though it's like, 40 years old. So yeah, I just think it's how the album resonates with the listener, and,
Yeah.
and that's where you get all those arguments
But
and
you know what?
everything.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong either, right? Because like I don't know, maybe it's just how the music industry is. Like I find myself like whatever music of genre I listen to, I tend to go
Hmm.
back. Like the new stuff that they're producing or making, like even rock music. Like
Hmm.
nowadays, like I don't know, I feel like back then I used to have a message, whether
Hmm.
it's these fucking party fuck girls, get high, heartbreak. It had a particular message. Now it's just like I feel like the tape is on replay and just going and going. I'm like, oh my
Hmm.
God, not this shit again. You know?
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
I get 100% like when go like you said, like go back to 86, listen to like what they did then. I don't know. I think there's something there. I don't know how to explain it, but you're not wrong, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, a case in point with that, since you bring up the similarities in a lot of the rock music, um, over the summer, my wife and I went to see Seven Dust, which they are amazing live. But before we got to see Seven Dust, there was like two or three modern rock bands that like I never heard of, but they've been around for at least 10 years, and they all sound the same. Like it's the same recycled stuff. And then when you get the Seven Dust, they sound one completely different, but also completely unique. Um, and it's like where did that disconnect happen? Because I mean, Seven Dust has been around since the 90s. So was it the fact that, you know, they're from the 90s and it's a different mentality than some of these
Yeah.
other bands? I mean, just in the writing process, or is it the larger music industry? Unfortunately, my book doesn't cover that, but like these
The next one, maybe.
yeah, maybe. But but these are kind of questions I guess we gotta ponder if we want to consume media that is supposed to not only resonate but also like provoke some sort of emotional or maybe even mental thought-provoking response. Because if we just keep
Yeah.
getting the same music with a slightly different lyric or message, then something's going to get lost.
Yeah. 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 And that's how I feel. Like lost and disconnected, like it's not making sense.
Hmm.
You know, yeah, that's how I feel. Another thought is like, I bet you be fucking people up in those match pit with your Aikido, bro.
Well, I did.
And then he'll throw elbows, you're like, nah, not today.
Yeah.
Swing.
Yeah. Actually, funny story. With that, there was one mosh pit that like I accidentally got into because just to preface this, I've seen other mosh pits where people come out bloody, and I'm like, I just spent like $50 just to come here. I don't want to like leave in an ambulance. Like
Yeah,
I spent money to be here, right? But anyway, the story is that I accidentally got into a mosh pit, and this guy locks onto me from the other side of the pit, and he starts to charge. I'm like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? Um, you know, thoughts that you're like, oh my God, this was like a handful of years ago. He comes in and he starts to push, and I actually kind of jump and turn out of the way, and I push him back, and then he never bothers me again. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'm gonna take that time and just walk back over here and just keep watching
enjoy this music. Yeah.
the yeah. So that's the only time that's like the only time that I've gotten had to throw hands in a mosh pit.
Yeah, yeah. No, you know what's people are misconstrued with these damn stupid videos people be posting, but like, Aikido could really fuck you up, Like I was talking to this gentleman, his name is Phil. I think he just got his black belt in jiu-jitsu, and
Hmm.
he's been doing these tutorial videos. I think he's aiming slowly but surely opening his old dojo and I think New York. And dude is first like the first thing for everything is Aikido. And he's an older gentleman. He's tough as balls. He'd be doing that Aikido shit in jiu-jitsu when I used to go back in the day. He'd be fucking people up, bro. Like, don't believe everything you see on the social media. So,
Yeah, no, no, absolutely. Once you start applying that stuff the way that it's either supposed to or the way that it works for you within the context, everything just explodes.
yeah,
Actually, considering that, I've been seeing a good handful of videos with uh, younger guys in BJJ that have Aikido that are using like small joint wrist locks and everything in in the jujitsu bout to win or to further explore some things. So something's coming around um, with it. I think it's slow but surely. But I mean, if those videos aren't enough proof to be like, hey, there is
yeah,
something to it, you just need to find out how it applies,
yeah.
then it's
I think
yeah.
people are really misconstrued because when you look at these videos, they're doing they're in their attire, the whole center
Hmm.
ceremony, whatnot. But they
Yeah.
don't like if you change the narrative and start doing it as like integrated it in some type of combat sport,
Hmm.
and we're like, it's time to put the honor and pride aside of teaching it and like really
Hmm.
start showing these people, it's gonna come back quick because like even with jujitsu, it has a lot of elements of judo. Like
Hmm.
mostly their throws and or from judo.
Hmm.
Historians like you that practice mixed martial arts, they have judo in them, right? Because when you come to think about like jujitsu is more on the floor ground. Like, what happens when you like tournament, right?
Hmm.
And the first thing they do is try to grab your gi. Especially if
Hmm.
you're doing it with gi, they get automatically. They always try to grab your gi, right? So like I would show the technique on how to you do some shit like that and take it out. But it's like it's not always effective. What else? What else? What is the other workaround? What else can you do?
Hmm.
Especially when somebody's trying to, come towards you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And it's predictable. So what else do you do? You know, so I'm constantly always just, brainstorming. It's always like, one hand washes the other. Everything
Hmm.
works and coincide with one another.
Hmm. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think just to kind of piggyback off of that, I think putting the art in different situations, again, to harken back to my mosh pit story, if you put the art again, whatever art that you are doing, we'll just use IQ for example. If you put it in different situations, and this is where I'm going with some of my own writing, but if you put in the art in different situations, you will see how, the basic techniques or the basic movements work in or apply themselves in that different scenario. I didn't throw the guy, but I got out of the way and pushed him, which,
You
you
redirected
know,
him.
yeah, yeah, which is part of the larger philosophy. So if we can change some of that to, or change the training to what's the word, emphasize and bring more of that aspect to light, then then I think some people are going to see the validity in it. Like, again, not just like just other arts too.
Yeah. Cool. So where can we find the book?
Absolutely. You can find the book on Amazon. Just type in "When We Rocked" on Amazon and you will find it, and then you can order it from there. We are working on getting an ebook. We only have a paperback right now, so we're trying to trying to work on an ebook. Um, hopefully in October, but don't quote me on that. Um, you can go to, if you can see my shirt, you can go to
Get rocked.
when we rock
Yeah.
Philly .com. There you'll find a lot more information about the book. You can also from there order your own signed author copy, not just from me, but also from McMichaels. Um, and then also at that site, we have these shirts. Again, it's Get Rocked,
Get
and we
rocked.
have the website and the Liberty Bell. Um, yeah, Amazon and whenwerockedphilly.com. Those is where you can get the books, the book and the merchandise. So
Boom.
on over.
Boom. And for your stuff, where can they can find you?
Oh,
Your martial art?
my other stuff. You can find me on Martial Arts of Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow, or Mayat. Type that in, it'll go straight to the website, or martialarthistory.com. And then if you type in martial arts history yesterday, today, and tomorrow, you'll find me on Facebook, uh, X, or Twitter, whatever you want to call it now, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, um, Amazon as well. Yeah, and all those fun things. So that's where you can find my personal stuff, or you can go to when we rocked Philly.com to find a book about all about Philly rock music scene.
Boom. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you go follow him. Make sure you get your book today. Make sure you go get your t-shirt. Make sure you follow him and support. Uh, and reach out, man. If you have any information regarding when you rocked in Philly, reach out. He would love to know. We have to do this again. Please reach out to your partner. See if we can have him on the show and we'll do this again. Uh, I'm out, guys. Have a good night. Like and subscribe our YouTube channel. And if you like what we're doing, make sure you buy me a coffee. Link below in the description. I'm out, guys. Have a good night. Boom.